Board of School Directors is hereby called to order. Please rise and join me in saluting the flag, and we will have one moment of silence after the pledge for the people who lost their lives in Boston.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item I have on the agenda tonight are requests to address the board. The first request I have is from Mr. John Domcha, speaking about a candidate.
Board members, just an announcement for a Concerned East Penn Taxpayers Association meeting that we're going to have, candidates night. Up and coming, the primary election soon. This would be for the student government, who would be good maybe to attend. It's on May 14th, it's a Tuesday coming up. Firehouse number 1 starts at 7:30, goes to about 9:30. There's a meet and greet before and after for all the candidates and the public to get together to talk things over. The meeting will go, there'll be questions and answers. I have a few handouts here, and it gives you the format of our program for that evening. So I'll just hand it out to you. For all the candidates here, please invite them to come along. Thank you. Bye.
The next request I have to address the board is Barbara Levinson of Wacunchie, speaking on class size.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Levinson. I'm a proud parent of 4 East Penn School students, 1 at high school, 1 at Iyer, and 2 at McCundy Elementary. My concern tonight is about the 3rd grader at McCundy. She's currently in a class of 32 students. The 3rd grade at McCundy has 3 classrooms, each with over 30 students in the classrooms. So it's over 90 students in 3rd grade. There is also over 90 students in the 4th grade, with each over 30 students per class. We all know about the studies that have been conducted about quality of education and class size. I am concerned about the education of all of those students. The teachers at McCundy Elementary are fabulous at meeting the needs of these students. However, a class size over 25 reduces the teacher's abilities of helping achieve the students' goals and reach their potential. The students suffer. I respectfully request Dr. Seidenberger, during the budget planning of 2013-2014, please consider adding 2 teaching positions to the McCundy Elementary faculty, 1 for next year's 4th grade class, this year's 3rd, and 1 for next year's 5th grade class, this year's 4th. I ask the members of the school board to take these needs of the students into consideration and approve these additions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Levinson. The next request to address the board I have is from Lee LaRussa of Wacunchie, speaking of Willow Transportation.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I really just had a couple, I thought, small things that were more points of clarification. My wife and I were trying to sort of anticipate the next school year, and we were thinking about, we fall right on the cusp of what the new busing radius might be, but we weren't sure exactly how they got figured out. I know that had been asked before. We looked at the Willow Student Handbook, which obviously contains information from prior years, but it really talks about distance from the nearest public highway, so we really couldn't use that to figure out where we fell. If there's another place on the school district website or somewhere else that we can find that information, if you could please direct us to that. If not, if it's something that still needs to be determined, when will that be? We need a little bit of time to figure out our transportation. Typically, we find out which bus the week before school starts. In this case, where it might be a different actual plan, we need a little more time. The last point, which is actually the one that concerns me more, is that we've been talking for a while about the transportation issues, and there had been talk about the parent committee with the Dr. Moyer and other representatives from Willow Lane, and that still seems to be up in the air. My understanding is that a few parents actually tried to reach out to Dr. Moyer, and it was still a when the time is right. I'm curious when that is. Time goes pretty quickly. We're already into the end of April, and there's probably some things that would need to be discussed and worked out with that. So I'm looking for the board to encourage, or Dr. Seidenberger to encourage that to move forward. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last request I have tonight to address the board is Jonathan Berger of the country speaking about school board procedures.
Good evening. In terms of school board procedures, I just wanted to make a comment that it seems a bit antiquated that we have public servants here, that we vote in, and we only get an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes at the beginning of each meeting. Sometimes parents have pointed questions. For example, last meeting, Susan Coonan asked 3 pointed questions. How exactly will we measure, the distance for the .75? Where are we with the parent committee? What is the feedback on the safe school routes and all that stuff? We don't get any answers. There are other meetings like the Lower Country Board of Commissioners meeting I've attended, the Safety Commission meetings, and they don't really last much longer than these meetings, if at all, and there's opportunity for public comment and dialogue, which is, I think, a lot more productive. When we constantly ask questions and they're not answered, and then we just hear rhetoric spew back and forth, we tend to get a little bit more vocal. It provides for negative media attention, which we try to avoid, and we can nip it right in the bud if we would be able to have a dialogue, even if it's after the meeting, making a short little briefing or something to that effect, where parents and the media could have just an opportunity to engage in a bit of dialogue. So I'd like to see that considered for the future. I also have a question about the Transportation Committee. I do see there's a motion for this evening, 10-10 on the agenda, so I'd like you to support the formation of that committee, which was promised to us a month back. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Berger. That ends the request to address the board I have for this evening. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Can I have a motion, please?
Second.
Are there any additions, corrections to the minutes? None appearing. All those in favor, Mr. Bacher?
There was a date listed under my tip off, the 18th, and question mark, and the date, the 8th. I hope I said the 8th, and I think confirmed that that's what I meant to say. Oh, okay. The 8th was the date I meant to say. I'll talk about that more today.
Yeah, correction on that date. Is there anything else to do?
I'll do a point of order again. I can't really hear what he's saying. If you could please use those microphones, it'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. Bacher is correct. The 8th. Is there anything else?
I would just comment, is this on? Can we hear it?
Hardly.
Well, while we're waiting, I'll speak louder. I was just commenting in the minutes, there was a date that had 18 question mark. There was some uncertainty. It was supposed to be 8 in my comments, so I was saying it was May 8th of a county commissioner meeting.
Mr. Earnshaw?
Well, as a point of order, the minutes are supposed to capture the discussion. So if you said the date but you weren't sure, then that's what the minutes should reflect, is what we discussed, rather than what really is the answer. So if you'll cover that tonight, I think that's more than adequate.
I didn't realize I wasn't sure. I thought it was trying to,
Correct the typo?
it had a question mark. It didn't say there was, I didn't, let me just, I read this on Thursday.
Well, since you're making a report tonight, you can correct anything.
I'll correct anything.
Anything else about the minutes? All those in favor of approving them, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is a report from our student government representatives, Adam, Rita, and Will Giannone. So if you gentlemen would like to take the floor. Oh, yeah, I can, yeah, sorry about that. I can read.
First, we would like to mention for student government, we're coming up to the early months of May and the end of April, and two huge events that we have are Final Rivals and Final Fling. Final Rivals is kind of like all the classes get together and like they form like 10 people teams with a teacher as like a captain kind of thing, and they just play like a bunch of like games, like do obstacle courses, they do like carry like a ball, like a bucket of water, and then it's kind of just like a field day kind of.
It's a big team building event sponsored by SGA, basically.
And then Final Fling is where we just give back to all the students for just to have like a final blowout bash kind of. Where we just rent like inflatables, we make our own water slide over near Iyer, Lower McKenzie Elementary, and we just let the kids like have fun, just enjoy the remainder of their school year.
It's a big picnic, basically all students in high school are invited, and yeah, we a lot of times get Subway to sponsor us and bring sandwiches and stuff, and it's just a big social event. That brings me to spring sports. UMass High School, we are dominating the LDC right now. I think overall we are 60-15 so far in the sports season. Baseball won today, lacrosse also won today. I know it's kind of irrelevant, but I thought it was a good thing to share. This week, all the AP government students are going to Washington, D.C. I think there's some important stuff down there.
Coming in like the second week of May, we'll have the juniors will have their prom, and that will be May 4th, and then the senior prom will be May 10th, which is a Friday, and then after ball still being organized for us as we speak.
Yeah, going a little bit deeper into that, senior ball tickets are $50 a piece, and we're having parent volunteers sign up right now to work the after ball. Like my dad's a blackjack dealer; he's never done it before, but come help out. The Arts Legally Blonde happened 3 weeks ago, I believe. It was sold out at every show. I actually got to see it twice, and I'm a big musical fan, but even if you're not, it was awesome. You get a chance to see that.
Just this past weekend, the dance team we have here, they just had their last recital. Adam and another student of ours, Zay, emceed it, and they just pretty much just went with anything that was going on.
We didn't really rehearse. I went up there and talked. Spent some time.
And then lastly, we all know the tragedy that happened in Boston, and what SGA is trying to do is we're gonna create T-shirts to say Boston Strong on it, and the lettering's all in the Boston Red Sox letter, and we're gonna donate. We're gonna sell them throughout the schools, and we're gonna donate all money, like all of our proceeds, to one of the charity organizations that are coming up.
Yeah, we're gonna sell them for. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Good question. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're gonna sell them for $6 a piece, and they're gonna be blue and yellow based on the colors of the Boston Marathon this past year. And yeah, obviously all proceeds are gonna go to the organization that we choose afterwards. Other than that, academically, there has been not much has changed since the last time we presented information. So, that's all we have, I think.
Okay, are there any questions for our student government representatives? Comments? Stolz?
We're coming up into the budget cycle here, and you guys are as close to what's going on in our schools as anyone. And if you have any suggestions for our budget, next time you have an update, bring them to us, and
Okay.
we'll be happy to hear them.
I'll make sure. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, gentlemen. We always appreciate your reports, and it's always good to see how well our student government is represented by you two being here. Thank you, and if you'd like to escape, now's your chance.
I'll take advantage of that. Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a presentation on the NSBA technology visit next week by Mr. Michael Moen, Director of Technology. Dr. Seidler, did you have any comments you want to make?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Ballard. We're certainly excited to host visitors.
We'll talk louder this evening.
Well, really, we're gearing down, and I guess gearing down our planning, and you're getting ready to stage what we think is going to be an exciting demonstration of what's going on in the East Penn schools. So I've asked Mr. Moen to brief you tonight, but I also want to take some time tonight to thank all the teachers that are involved in doing and preparing lessons, because classrooms are going to be visited. We also have some people putting on workshops. I certainly want to thank Mrs. Boyce for her art efforts. We have many donations from our business community, and I'm pleased to say that I don't think we're going to be spending too much of district funds, if anything at all, on this project. So that was our goal. I'm happy to report that out. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Moen, and he's going to take you through some things we have ready for our visitors.
I'm going to be yelling this evening as it appears the wireless microphone is giving me some trouble there. Okay, so we had the NSBA, the National School Boards Association Excellence in Technology Award. We said previously we're the first school district in Pennsylvania ever to be awarded this award, so it's a pretty exciting time for us. And we created two different resources for our visitors to come here. First off, I'm going to show you the technology website. If you go to the school district website, eastpennsd.org, and put in /technology/NSBA, you get the entire website for our visit. We start off with all the information for the visit, our sponsors here that are sponsoring our trip, and a list of our visitors. And as you can see, we have people coming from all over the country, as far west as Texas, Carolinas, South Carolina, Alabama, and actually have some emails from people in California that might be making the trip. In a nutshell, the trip is 6 buildings in 2 days. We're going to start with Emmaus High School on Monday morning, tour that building, have lunch, head to Willow Lane Elementary in the afternoon. We're going to spend Monday evening up at the Da Vinci Center with a tour and an overview. We'll talk about the partnership with the Da Vinci Center and the district. And the second day, we're going to change things up a little bit. Every visitor that's coming has a choice of taking either the Ayer Shoemaker tour or the LMS Westfield tour. Now each tour is broken down in pretty much the same format. We start off with a welcome and overview, and there's a tour A, B, and C. Now I've been communicating with the people that are registering for the event. They're looking on the website right now. They're picking the tours they want to go on, and they're putting them in their slots. There are classroom visits. As you can see here, they're listed with a project, the facilitator's name, and some breakout sessions. The breakout sessions are sessions like we had our robotics team going. There are sessions in computer labs that would work better in a breakout session versus a classroom visit. Dr. Torm was doing the eFolio presentation in one of our school buildings. So you pick your tour. Our student ambassadors are taking all of our visitors through all the classrooms. They're spending 10-15 minutes in each classroom in breakout sessions. At the end of the morning on the first day, we'll have lunch back in the boardroom here, sponsored by CDI, one of our partners, who buy a lot of computers and parts and supplies from, and heading off to Willow Lane Elementary in the afternoon. Again, same format. Welcome, an overview in the media center, several tours, and classroom visits. The second day, like I said earlier, is a visitor's choice, whether to go to Ayer or Shoe, LMS, and Westfield. Over the 2 days, we had 60 classroom visits, about 75 classroom teachers, and about 12 breakout sessions. Now, we know everybody can't go to everything, so what we did, we came up with an idea. We created a Moodle classroom for every visit. Every visit that you see on the website has a sentence or two about what's going on in the classroom, but as people have been registering, I'm putting them in as students in our Moodle classroom. So I go inside the Moodle classroom as a visitor, and I can go down, and now if I go to like Willow Lane Elementary, and these are all Moodle classrooms, let me select smart boards and iPads in Daily 5. Each of the 60 classroom visits have the same exact format. That is, you go into it, you see the title of the event, a paragraph or two in the words of the facilitators, their picture, a bio of the facilitator or facilitators, teacher websites, documentation, projects, anything that goes with that classroom visit. So for every classroom visit, there's a full and robust area or classroom they can go into and see. Now the strategy for this and the tactic is this. We know they can't see through the tour, we know they can't make everything, but they can go through here now and pick the tour they want to go on to. And when they go back to their school district and back to their colleagues, they can browse through these classrooms and in a sense take a virtual tour of the classroom they might have missed. We're going to leave that open for the rest of the year so they can go inside and see everything that's going on, contact the teachers, look at the projects, and hopefully start some new relationships with people across the country. Now, if I'm a visitor and I've gone through all my Google rooms and I've checked out all the information on the website, I can then go back here and I can go to my checklist and I can start checking off what I saw that like any triptych. I go inside here, I've got my progress bar. I can start selecting what I want to go on, so we have a virtual paperless tour guide in a sense when they first get here. When they land, we'll give them guest access, we'll be bringing their devices, and they can follow along with the tour. So we've got a lot of classroom visits, a lot of breakout sessions, a lot of information, and for each session, there's an actual classroom they can go into and learn everything about what we're doing inside the district. The tour is coming close. It is going to be a very quick and fast-paced 2 days of activity. We're pretty excited about it, and it's going to be incredible. I'm trying to think of the words to describe it. But it's very exciting and quite an honor being the first district chosen. We have a lot going on, and just really, really proud of everybody that has participated. And I will say, the visits that you see, although it sounds like a lot, and it is, the 60 classroom visits, the key word is organic. These are not canned presentations where visitors come in and then we stop what we're doing and put up a PowerPoint, they talk to them. They're walking in on authentic projects and situations inside the classroom. It's real. We want it warm, we want it interactive. When they go in and see the Lego robots going on, they're going to walk in, there's going to be pieces of Lego all over. The kids are going to be working, they're going to get down with them and go. It's not going to be a static trip. It's going to be a nice, warm, close event, and it's going to be great. And did I mention it's next week? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. If there's any questions about the visit or anything, we'd be glad to.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Moan or Dr. Zeifer on this event?
It's with so many wonderful teachers and classrooms and activities, how did we select the 60 classrooms?
I'll let Mr. Moan answer that, but it was not easy.
Thank you. We threw nets out there, we went out, we talked to everybody, we got everybody excited about it, and we ended up having to not really let everybody have a classroom visit. But towards the end, we kind of really did. We just put it all out there and thought, you know what? We know not everybody can go through all the classrooms and see all the visits, but the idea of making them little classrooms and filling with it, they can take the virtual tour of the classroom as if they would have seen it in person. So we just put everything out there.
So we general members of the public can also enjoy this tour, can we? Yes.
The website has all of the...
Yes.
I did not make the Moodle room open and tourable by the public. I could, but that was something we have to talk about because some of the closed information in there, we have to be careful of what might be posted inside there because it's a closed environment right now. But we can certainly modify it when we're all done to make it a public document with everything. So I plan on keeping this out there for quite a while.
I think that might be appreciated.
Okay.
Mr. Hershaw?
Have we given any consideration to perhaps videotaping some of the presentations so we can capture those as an online record? That way, if somebody said, you know, I'd really love to be in 4 different sessions during this one block, but I can only get to 3, they might be able to see it afterwards.
Actually, if I zoom in on day 1, when we all gather in the high school in the morning and the overview, we are all going down to the high school TV studio. What the visitors don't know is they're part of that morning broadcast, and the high school students are doing their story on the visitors. Interviews, videotaping, they're going to be part of all of it. And they're going to be taping everything that's going on. And also ITV at IRE, LMS, we have a lot of news groups that are going to be taping and documenting everything. Right. They don't know that yet, that's a surprise.
So we're going to have roving reporters.
We are investigative reporters.
Any other questions? None appearing, thank you very much. And Look forward
Thank
to
you.
a great few days with the NSBA tour.
Sunday night, the visitors will arrive. Mrs. Boyce and I will be greeting our visitors along with Ann Flynn, National School Boards Association, Sunday night at the Holiday Inn in Westfield, Fogelsville. They'll be coming here, and again, I want to remind the board that you're all invited to the Da Vinci Center reception where you can mingle with our visitors. Dave Smith will be there. If you like ice cream treats, we have a special ice cream from their products on Monday night. And so we're really looking to a fantastic visit. Again, through the efforts of Mrs. Boyce, we have put together very nice gift baskets, and again, all through donations, so we're excited about this event. We just wish more people were coming. It's a shame that there are tough economic times, but even Miami-Dade did not draw particularly well this year. But nonetheless, we're going to put on quite an experience for the people that are coming. I do want to also share with you that recently, through the efforts of Mrs. Boyce and others in the district, certainly Mr. Mullen, Mr. Stapleton is leaving, and Dr. Torma, and all of our technology staff, we just have been recognized by the Pennsylvania School Public Relations Association as an award-winning website. So congratulations to everyone associated with our website. That's, I think, our second statewide award in the last 3 years, so congratulations to our outstanding staff. They do a fabulous job. And I think just sharing with the visitors all the wonderful dimensions of our website is going to be a real treat for me as well. Do want to let the board know that we're going to be pulling tonight item 4 from the business operations. So it's something we don't have to do tonight. We'll probably come back and put it on the agenda in one of our board meetings in June. We're already covered for this year. It's something that we want to do, some questions that we have answered. I know Mr. Bacher is going to give a report tonight, but I do want to remind the board and inform the public that the TIF plan, the one we received this morning, is posted on our website. It's also posted on Lehigh County and Lower Macungie Township website. My understanding is there's going to be a couple pages that are changed, and when we get those from Jason Brockman of PFM, we'll put them online as soon as we get them. I'm certainly encouraging the board and the public to read the document. Everything you want to know about the TIF is included in that document. So I think when we have our presentation on the next board meeting, May 13th, I certainly hope that everyone has taken the time to read the document. And certainly my invitation to you, and I'm sure Mr. Bacher would join with me, if a board member has a question about any aspect of that report, if you want to forward it to either Mr. Bacher or me, we will gladly forward that question to Jason Brockman and Scott Scheer of PFM, who will be doing the presentation here on May 13th. By the way, the presentation that they will be putting on for us is exactly the same presentation that will be put on for Lehigh County Commissioners and also for the Board of Commissioners at Lower Macungie Township. The good news, talking to Mr. Boswell, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about our conversations later on in my report, but each agency will have the opportunity to vote on this plan well before we complete our final budget. And if you look at the report, you'll see that there is an impact for our budget for next year. And so let me move right on. And I'm going to try to do things a little differently. Usually I say the talk about budget to last, but I'm going to do that first tonight. You know, when we start putting together this budget almost from day one, almost from July 2nd, I don't think a lot of people understand that we do have goals in mind. And this year, we passed out budget goals. And I just want to highlight primary goals. Number one, to develop a budget that's educationally sound and fiscally prudent. Next board meeting, I think you're going to see one that fits that bill. Number two, to maintain fiscal flexibility and the ability to adapt to external factors that may impact the overall budget. I think the budget we're going to present does that. 3, to improve the overall efficiency of the school district. In just a couple of moments, I'm going to give you good news about our energy consortium, how much money we've saved this year. 4, to be able to adjust to the organization to meet the demands of both funded and unfunded state and federal mandates. And 5, to maintain, and for me as a superintendent, this is the one that I'm most pleased about and most satisfying to me in light of all the harrowing stories that are out there in the public, and that's to maintain all existing academic instructional programs in the 2013-2014 school year. At this point, I am pleased to report to the board and to the public that it is our goal, unless something dramatic happens in the next 2 or 3 weeks, it is our intent to submit to you a budget that includes a no tax increase for next year. I want to thank the board and the public for hanging with us for the last 3 years. Your faith in us is greatly appreciated. However, at the same time, like every other budget, we're entering this with a degree of uncertainty. And like everything else, I think my team and I, we've demonstrated our fiscal acumen over the years, and we will make adjustments. I know the parent talked tonight about class sizes. They are elevated, there's no doubt about that. But going forward, we have and will continue to look where we think our situation's at that may warrant new staff members. And we've done that. Each year we've done that, put in teachers, and we've made the adjustments in our budget. In other words, we put a new teacher in, we've curbed spending somewhere else. And we've done, I think, a marvelous job of arresting spending in our district. So, but there are some things that I just want to let the board know, that things that I can't control but may have an impact on how we get to a zero tax increase or no tax increase. I think you're all aware of it, but I think I just want to highlight some things we're not quite sure of at this point that could affect the final document that you vote on in the last board meeting in June. Again, I don't sense there's going to be any change. I wouldn't have said it tonight unless I meant it. But we don't know right now about the governor's funding. We hear mixed information. I do have information from a good friend of mine. I had a meeting with the governor. The governor said one thing, and I'm personally going to hold the governor accountable for what he told a close superintendent friend of mine. So I'm more optimistic than I have been on basic education aid. You're going to see in the TIF report, again, this is certainly something I can't control. This would be something that the board must decide for yourselves. Certainly Lehigh County Commissioners and Long Beach Country Township Commissioners. But if you look closely at the TIF report, you'll see that there's an automatic revenue increase for us next year if the TIF plan is approved by all 3 governmental agencies. Next, so in lieu of those things being up in the air, we will continue to do what we've done every year in every budget. Look at revenues. You've had an opportunity to talk to Lower Country Township. Those of you who live along Quarry Lane, you'll see there's a brand new warehouse going up. It's 439,000 square feet. That warehouse alone is worth $385,000 of the revenue. We're excited about that. Nice revenues, no kids. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, we don't have to worry about increased enrollment at this point. Also, we will continue to look at our budgets. Right now, we're not quite at zero, but I'm, again, fully confident that we will be there. And the document you'll see, the proposed final budget you will see on May 13th, we'll have a zero increase. So, with that in mind, I think maybe perhaps you anticipated some good news tonight. We have on the board agenda tonight a recommendation to transfer funds from our general operating budget to capital reserve. Last board meeting, Mr. Clancy reviewed with you some potential projects that we're going to have. And again, I want to assure you that the funds that we're going to be transferred have been mostly generated by refinancing our bonds over the last 2 or 3 years. And we've done well. We've held on to that money for the last couple of years in lieu of uncertainties, but I think we feel very confident right now that we can make that transfer, otherwise we would not have recommended. We haven't done that much in way of capital projects over the last couple of years, but I think tonight signals that we really want to be serious about keeping our buildings in tip-top shape. So we're making that reservation tonight with no reservations. Along with that, I just want to highlight one of the things that, I don't know how much credit we want to get, but I just want to assure the board and the public that we do our job quietly and efficiently. Several years ago, Mr. Clancy came to you with some recommendations about joining an energy group, an energy conservation group that looks for better prices. We just got our report back. So through the efforts of joining the Provident Energy Consortium, results from July through April, now we saved $166,000 this year alone. And I think that's darn good. So I'm very pleased where we are in the budget this time, and we'll certainly take all of your questions next board meeting, but I want to give you a little advance notice that I think this year we should have better news for you. Mrs. Donchis, you asked me last time about if we get federal, we don't take federal money. Curiously enough, I wrote a letter to the feds. Nobody answered me. I don't know why not, but I smiled. We're still waiting for an answer. When I get it, I'll forward it to you. Also, Dr. Rye from the IU, she put a call into the number 2 person in the Pennsylvania Department of Education. We haven't quite received an answer yet. And I don't want to give you misinformation. I'd like to hear from someone at the top. And the reason why everyone is confused is because finally the state of Pennsylvania put in for some waivers for No Child Left Behind. I don't know what that means in terms of the funding. But I will tell you this, though. That with the federal funds we do get that service needy children, we get $680,000 for Title I services. That's for students who have demonstrated academic needs, and they're tied to poverty rates. Also, Title II, and you see some agenda items tonight, or some conferences that are paid with Title II funds. Those are monies that are earmarked for staff development. We get about $169,000 a year in those funds. Title III is money that services our limited English proficient students. We get about $40,000 for that. And then through the hard work of people like our nurses, speech pathologists, we get about $500,000 a year in federal access fund. And we plow all that money back into support special education because I believe that's what the intent of access is. We do not take that money and transfer that to the general fund. So we're very happy about that. I can tell you, though, that in special education, if the state of Pennsylvania takes $1, we are required to do everything regarding IDA. So there, if we decided for some reason not to take federal funds, we would be obligated to serve special needs students. So that is a definite. Now I've asked Dr. Carrick and Dr. Gutman to prepare reports for me. They've done so, and I will gladly submit those to the board when it's been a crazy week. When I get a couple moments, I'll give you full reporting from each of those individuals who supervise those programs, and they break it down into specifically what kind of activities, number of students we serve, in what buildings, and I think that should help you as we go through the budget process. Thank you very much. Also want to say I'm very excited about the National Board Certification Program for teachers. This is a very rigorous process. Our own Mr. Rhodes has attained this marvelous certification, so congratulations to Mr. Rhodes. We're going to be having an informational meeting on May 2nd for teachers in our district who may be interested in going through this. Dr. Doug Blair, who's on the staff of East Stroudsburg University will be here to have an informational session. There are only 4 centers in Pennsylvania that offer this really prestigious certification, East Stroudsburg University being one of them. So we're excited to host that meeting here November 2nd. Now let me get on to Lower Macungie, our conversations with Lower Macungie Township, and perhaps I can answer some of the questions that were posed tonight. Let me get right to the distance. Looking at what the requirements of Pennsylvania Department of Education are, and also our own strong believings, we will be measuring distances in the following way. The distance from a residence to the driveway that's located on Sauerkraut, the main entrance to Low Lane. That's how we will be measuring distances to see if students are within that range. We will certainly communicate that to parents. And as I said before, we've scanned that many times. We're trying to redefine our boundaries. We're trying to be very precise with not Edgelon, no, it's Versatran. So we want to be very clear, but we'll have that information well in advance so parents can make plans with Dr. Lewis. Okay? The second thing is people concerned where Lower Macungie is in the process. I talked to Mr. Fosselman this morning. All of the township's off-site safety plans have already been approved, and they're going out to bid very soon. I think April 29th. They will be accepting bids, and my understanding is that all of their parts of the joint efforts will be installed, ready for school come late August. So I'm happy to hear that. Their parts, the program include the flashing lights, doing crosswalks, and I know Mr. Fossman will be advertising for crossing guards as soon as possible. There's 7 crossings that will be staffed by crossing guards. I think the most important one, which I understand, is the intersection of Sauerkraut and Well. There will be 2 crossing guards at that intersection, catty corner from one another. So we're very happy about that, and I want to thank the township for really working with us. I know some parents, a lot of questions, but I've said this multiple times. We've got to do our work, and sometimes it doesn't coincide with some of the timelines that parents wish we had. But we're doing our work and have done our work continuously in this process. So, also, give you an update. Last week, Mr. Suzik finished his drawings. We had a chance to review those drawings. Mr. Clancy, Dr. Mirabelle, and Mrs. Campbell, Dr. Moore came over, and in fact, we took those plans and went and made sure that right back on Low Lane site, and I can tell you from that meeting, we think we have enhanced those drawings even better. One of the things we're talking about that we're going to be adding are flashing stop signs on the school property. We're going to see if we can afford the solar-driven ones, which we like those. And also, we've had an opportunity to debate the size of the gates, and I think we came up with a compromise that we will be putting the gates in on that will help curb traffic from moving around. Now, a lot of people want to know, why hasn't Dr. Moore had his parent meeting? It's very simple. Again, when you want to meet with parents, we want to have all the answers. And we have all the answers, but we want to make sure, in his case, the worst thing we could do is say, I don't know. That'll be a lot of frustrating questions. So, Dr. Moore has 2 things that he's working on. He's asked for a group of his own staff members to work on internal dismissal procedures. Certainly we'll have more students this year. They've staged students one way this year for dismissal with cars. That's not going to be the process that they have next year. It simply will not work. But again, so he wants to work with his staff members about staging students and how we're going to make sure that students are escorted out to parent vehicles and how all that's going to work. And that leads us to her work of what the parents will be doing with Dr. Moore. And we certainly want to talk about barriers that are going to be put in place to funnel traffic and exactly what procedures parents will follow when they drop their children off in the morning and what procedures they'll follow when it comes time for dismissal. Certainly, Dr. Moore will be open to parent suggestions. Now, as recently as last week, I sent letters to parents indicating that there'll be a meeting. I think it's coming up. You have a copy of the letter. There's so many dates coming. I think there were 23 parents that were interested. Obviously, 23 parents on the committee is too large. So Dr. Moore is going to distill that down and make sure there are representatives from neighborhoods that will serve on that committee. So I fully suspect that that will be going. Dr. Moore will be joined by Mr. Clancy and Dr. Mirabel. Mr. Cizak will come out and work with parents to answer any questions. So I'm confident that those meetings will happen and people will have all the answers they need long before the school year starts next year. In fact, I don't see any reason why that work won't be done in May. So, we're very happy about that progress. And again, Paul Suzak just has a couple minor touches to do with his drawings, and he will be submitting them to the township. And we see no reason why they will not be expedited and approved. Again, technically, one of the reasons this process takes a little bit long, and again, not apologizing for not meeting some individuals' timelines, but when we submit these plans, these are final. We don't get a chance to change these that often. Like the plans that we're changing were the ones that were approved way back when the school was approved before I got here. So that's why we're taking our time. We don't want to put something on paper, have a drawing, and then say, oops, 3 months from now, we have a better idea. Mr. Ballard, that's all I have.
Okay, I just note for the record that as Dr. Seidenberger referred to Dr. Moyer's committee process, he's going to include 10 participants, 2 parents from each of the following developments: Boma, Brookside, Brandywine Village 1 and 2, Brookside Farms, and Graymore. The names for the committee will be selected at a public drawing at Willow Lane Elementary School on April 26, 2013. Now, are there any questions for Dr. Seidenberger on his report? Please segue into Mr. Stolz.
Given the communication we had about Willow Lane Elementary School, I'll withdraw my resolution that's on the agenda for tonight. This isn't quite perfect in my eyes, but you know, in politics, it's the art of reaching good enough. And this is good enough as long as the parents get back to us and tell us it was good enough. So please keep me informed as to how it's going. Thank you for finally giving me a budget that I can vote for. I will, or possibly giving me a, we'll see how it is, how it looks by the time we get there. I'm going to have about 3 months of tweets to go through tonight because I think I may have predicted this on social media a while back, but I'll see if I can find it. But anyway, thank you. That doesn't mean that between now and then I won't be looking a way to cut further spending and maybe give the public a tax cut. But so far, I like what I'm hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Stoltz. Any other comments, questions? Dr. Seidenberger's report. None appearing. Can I have a motion, please, on personnel?
So moved.
Is there any discussion of the personnel items? Any questions? None appearing. Ms. Birdsall, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Donahue.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller. Mr. Colacott.
Aye.
Mr. Bacher.
Aye.
Mr. Stolz.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
9 ayes.
All right, next item on the agenda is Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit. Ms. Fuller, would you like to introduce the motion?
Thank you, yes. Every year, Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit evaluates the needs of the students it serves and makes adjustments as to the physical facilities that are needed. So in some cases, classrooms are moved from one place to another. If memory serves me correctly, last year, 2 classrooms were moved from the East Penn district to the Whitehall Copley School District. So in attachment 9, you see the recommended room schedule for serving classes with life skills supports and other needs, multi-disability functional classrooms throughout both Hardin and Lehigh counties. So I make a motion that we approve this classroom allocation.
Second.
Any discussion on this motion? None appearing. Ms. Birdsall, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bacher?
Aye.
Mr. Earnshaw?
Aye.
Ms. Hyde?
Aye.
Mr. Stolz?
Aye.
Mr. Polacano?
Aye.
Ms. Fuller?
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez?
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes?
Aye.
Mr. Ballard?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Is there anything else you'd like to report on the carbon related units?
Yes, at the meeting which life gets so full, I guess it was last week, but we learned that the CLIU received 100% perfect score from PDE for work with the 3 to 5-year-old population who needs special support. That the auditors came in and looked at all aspects of the program and found everything absolutely perfect. Feel like you couldn't believe it because perfection doesn't ever happen, but in this particular case, it did, and it was very delighted.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bacher, did you have a question? All right. Next item is Lehigh Career and Technical Institute, Ms. Hyde.
It looks like we had our last meeting on March 27th, and we started that out with a reception. It was an award ceremony for the students and the families who placed in Skills USA, so it was an excellent turnout. We also had a Governor Burbett visit about 3 weeks ago, and if anyone wants additional information on that, if you go to the LCTI's website and you go under News, there's some pictures and some information under there. And we got information about First Book. It's a not-for-profit organization that LCTI has created a relationship with. They distribute books to low-income families, and to date, they have moved 159,000 books. So kudos to them. And we also had new company programs that were customized just for those individuals. Niagara Bottling, we had Lehigh Cement Group, and Bosch Rexroth, which we've had before, but they're creating some training days for those individuals and those companies. And we have a career night coming up on April 25th. Let me get to my other notes here. Gary's Days Career Night scheduled for April 25th at 7 p.m. and it's been advertised, so hopefully there'll be a good turnout. And there was also on April 29th and 10th, we had a learning walks for counselors. So there were 40 counselors that came from the high schools, the participating high schools, and it looks like it was a very successful event. We're going to get updated on it this coming Wednesday. We have a meeting. I think that might be it. Oh, and the last thing that they did mention is that they are building an alumni association. They have one in place. They're really trying to build upon it at LCTI. And that is all I have to report if anyone wants to add anything.
Anybody have anything to add, Mr. Earnshaw?
Pardon me, just to build on a couple of things that Ms. Hyde said. When the LCTI Adult Education Program, they enter into these agreements with local businesses to provide these customized training programs. It might be forklift safety training, it might be mechanical and mechatronics for an assembly line. When they do that, they take those are all for-fee courses. They charge the employers a fee for creating the curriculum, and they charge a fee for delivering that curriculum. Those funds are then used by the school to purchase equipment that's used not only for adult education, but also for the students in their programs. So it allows us to acquire capital goods that provide learning opportunities for the high school students without having to tap into the budget for doing that and requiring the school districts to pay for those capital improvements. So it's been a great program, highly successful. It's brought in I don't know exactly how much, but it's in the millions of dollars over the course of the last several years. And we continue to have great interest from employers in the valley who come to us, so much so that even, it's B. Braun, right, that has we have a program that we deliver the training at their facility here. They wanted to have a similar program at their facility in California, but there was no career and technical school that had a program anything like LCTI. So they asked us to hire someone in California to deliver that training, to provide all the curriculum and set up their program, and it's been a very successful relationship that we have with them. To my knowledge, it's the only career and technical institute in the country that operates in more than one state. And when you consider that they're separated by an entire continent, it becomes quite a bit more impressive. Also, the students that we recognize, those are the students who earn some kind of recognition at the district level, and many of them moved on to the state competitions. I believe that our next meeting will be recognizing those students who will go on from states to nationals. So it's always a privilege to see how successful our students are and how many there are. When I started at LCTI 5 or 6 years ago, there were 20 or 30 students. And I think we have 60 students this last time. So highly successful, and our students, not just from Emmaus High School, but also from all 10 high schools in Lehigh County, are doing exceptionally well. Thank you.
I think Emmaus had the most placements out of all the other high schools. I think we had 7, and the average, I think Parkland had 6. Growing up.
That school to the north who shall not be named. His name must not be mentioned. Any other questions for Mr. Earnshaw or Ms. Hyde? Thank you. We'll go on to a legislative report. Well, if all I had to report was what's happening in the legislature, it'd be a real short report, which is nothing per se. They have not reported out any budget bills yet that I know of. And if you remember, in 2 weeks, we've got to be, maybe it's 3 weeks, but we have to be making our first proposed preliminary budget. And then by the end of June, we have to pass the final budget. We don't have any idea yet what the state is going to actually have for education in their budget, so we just sort of have to guess. And that's what we'll be doing, I suspect, on May the 13th. This week, PSBA joined a number of local government leaders at the Capitol to ask the General Assembly once again to enact meaningful reforms to the Prevailing Wage Act. I know there have been some people saying that if 50 school boards called up to the Capitol and said that they wanted a prevailing wage, that would be some big thing. Well, we've had 500 school boards contact their legislators asking to have the Prevailing Wage Act removed, and we've had no traction so far. If somebody wants to call me sometime, I'll tell them why I think that personally occurs, but nothing is happening yet with prevailing wage. I don't even know that there's a bill in the hopper yet to avoid prevailing wage. In fact, somebody started putting amendments on some of the other bills to prevent mandate waivers, and I think prevailing wage was one of them. I know that bidding single contractors was also put in as an amendment to prevent us from bidding single contractors, which is one of the things that we try to ask for as one of the things to actually waive a mandate waiver on. So it's silly season again in the legislature, saying one thing out of one side of their mouth and another out on the other. PSBA put a very interesting spin on pension reform this week. PSBA's current acting chief counsel, Emily Leader, provided the legislature with a new legal analysis that supports some of the actions the governor might intend to take on pension reform that have been stymied by certain Supreme Court decisions. And one of the things was to note that some other decisions have been made that said that if there's a qualifying event that you tie some of these changes to, such as getting a pay raise or getting a promotion, that it is possible to change the benefits of some employees. In other words, if you accept a pay raise, you've accepted the new terms of the pension. There's some interesting legal analysis going on there. And PSBA gave that to the legislature to give them a little bit more food for thought. So there is some potential there, and PSBA is working with the legislature and the governor trying to address pension reform and trying to get that something through to address the situation that we presently have. The governor moved the state tax equalization board over and signed a bill moving that over to the economic Department of Community and Economic Development. We'll have to see what happens there. That's a board that has the power to determine the market value of taxable real estate in each school district. And it also adjudicates problems where you have school districts that are in two counties, and the two counties have different assessment rates that have different villages, and they do things there that cause problems. If you'll recall, just recently the borough of Regalsville has successfully seceded from the Easton School District because it was being hit with a decision of the State Tax Equalization Board that raised the taxes for Regalsville residents as though they lived in Bucks County, but they were in a Lehigh County School District, and they successfully petitioned to move over since they were closer to the Bucks County School District, Palisades, and so that's one of the things that happens with this board. So they're hoping to get more oversight over the board by moving it into an administrative department. And last report, still on the governor's desk, which is the HB2. I've heard something that might have been signed, but I haven't got a definite thing on that, which implements the new special education funding formula for any increases, which is great, except there haven't been any increases in 5 years, so nobody expects that formula to kick in anytime soon. And the current budget proposal does not include an increase. But it also includes this commission to determine a new formula, which might eventually come up with something. Like I said, there are some amendment waiver bills out there being considered by the Health Education Committee, but they're being amended left and right. We're not sure how that's going to go. The House Select Committee for School Safety had conducted a hearing, and they established themselves as a committee, and they're going to examine the issues of school safety. And there's some talk about some grants for school resource officers, which we may have to be discussing sometime in the future. There's a Senate passed the bill SB 10, which expands the current Safe School Grant Program, and that includes some extra funding for that type of thing. Nothing has passed the House yet. There's possible changes to the Discipline Act for professional educators. There's another bill which requires, Senate Bill 46, which requires an employment history review for all prospective school employees. And it applies to all prospective employees of public and private schools, non-public schools, intermediate units, and area vocational technical schools, included but not limited to teachers, substitutes, janitors, cafeteria workers, independent contractors, and their employees, except those employees and independent contractors who have no direct contact with children. It's an investigation concerning sexual misconduct, which would have to be conducted for every employee, prospective employee. They did pass a nice resolution in the Senate, Senate Resolution 71, which calls upon the President and the Congress to fully fund all the special education mandates, but they aren't funding their own mandates locally, but we won't talk about that. And of course, there's another unfunded mandate, which is very interesting to read, the fiscal analysis. House Bill 19 has passed, which is not passed by the Senate, which requires school districts to incorporate an age-appropriate child exploitation awareness education program into existing curriculum. And their analysis was it costs nothing to do that. Last time I heard, we were paying a lot of people very good money to review our curriculum for Common Core standards and all these other things. It takes hours to incorporate these things, even if the Department of Education comes up with supposed standard curriculum, to incorporate them somewhere reasonably into our curriculum. So although the fiscal analysis by their agency said 0, I don't understand how they come up with this. It doesn't cost them any money, I guess is what it amounts to, but it costs our local taxpayers. There are a lot of committee meetings going on right now, but again, all of the budget information is under the table. We cannot find anything about any solid proposals going forward. So legislatively and budget-wise, we're at a standstill right at the moment. Are there any questions or comments anybody wants to make? Mr. Stolz?
I think Dr. Seidenberger had something.
Go ahead.
All right, just commenting on your, the reason that things like prevailing wage reform aren't passing. If anyone's curious as to why that is, I simply suggest they look at the campaign finance reports of Sam Smith, Mike Turzai, and Mike Burr, 3 Republican leaders in the House, and Joe Scarnati, Dominic Pileggi, and our very own Pat Brown in the Senate, loaded with union money. That's the reason I believe things like liquor store privatization will be passing.
Thank you, Mr. Stolz. Dr. Seidenberger?
I was just going to comment, Mr. Ballard, on the special ed committee. My understanding is that there's been a timeline given to the members of the committee that have been directed to look at real, live, up-to-date special education data. And so I think that will go a long way in hoping to develop appropriate categories for funding. And again, the good work that we did in Lehigh County demonstrating to the legislature that certainly has been a growing need in our district and in the county for students, unfortunately, who have a higher range of needs, mostly in the autistic spectrum.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll move on to business operations. The first item is the bid opening report. We had a general school supplies and computer supplies bid. It was done as Exhibit 10.
Mr. President, there was a addition put on there. We did receive bids from business stationers, which was not on the original list.
Okay.
So that has been added to the list, and I believe all the board members have revised copies.
Okay. All right, I've been asked to separate a number of items here, so we'll try to go down the list here. Item number 2, approval of the bill list. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Discussion? None appearing. Ms. Birdsall, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Fuller.
Aye.
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
Abstain.
Mr. Polito.
Aye.
Mr. Bacher.
Aye.
Mr. Stolz.
Abstain.
Ms. Hawk.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
7 ayes, 2 abstentions.
All right, item number 3, the treasurer's report. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any commentary or questions about that? None appearing. Ms. Birdsall, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller.
Aye.
Mr. Polito.
Aye.
Mr. Bacher.
Aye.
Mr. Stolz.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Item number 4 has been withdrawn until a meeting in the future. Item number 5, the appointment of the auditor. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on this motion? Ms. Sanchez?
I just had some questions. I understand this is a letter of engagement. Is there a contract as well? Or is it just each year there's a letter of engagement?
This is letter of engagement.
So were there any other firms given the opportunity to submit a quotation?
I don't believe we talked to anybody else.
Then what's the process by which Gordon Associates becomes aware of the opportunity?
They automatically give us, if we're interested in continuing with them, they give us the paperwork, show us their rates, explain what they're going to do, and then we bring that to the board as our recommended auditor.
Have any other firms ever expressed an interest in auditing the district?
Before we had Gorman and Associates, we had other auditors, I'm sure that we opened that up. And we had several apply, give us proposals. And our associates were selected, and they've done a fine job for us ever since. And so we stayed with them.
And how many years has that been?
Sure, we have 205, 2005, 2006. Was it before that?
We believe, the solicitor believes that Mr. Gorman was with another firm that performed our audit for the other firm during that previous period.
That's correct, Mr. Ballard. 2004-2005 was the last audit year for Hutchinson, Gorman, and Freed, which Mr. Gorman was a part of it, and there was a split of the partners. We solicited RFPs to determine which firm to go with at the time, and decided to go with Gorman and Associates, starting with 05-06. We have not received any communications from auditors since that time, other auditors.
Ms. Sanchez, do you have any other questions?
And I just want, on the annual financial report, the $850, not that that's a lot, but is that if we want them to help us prepare it, or if we just get a copy of it?
Yes, that's to help us prepare, which we don't do.
I would just like to say that I didn't submit a formal reissuing of my motion from last time, but that I will do that in the future, but that I encourage us to bid out these professional services or put out the request for proposal. And I won't support it this year, but hopefully we can get to where we're putting out some requests in the future.
Other comments, questions? Ms. Birdsall, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bacher.
Aye.
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez.
Nay.
Ms. Fuller.
Aye.
Mr. Stolz.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 nay.
Okay, item number 6, appointment of architects for professional services. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or discussions about this motion? None appearing. Ms. Birdsall, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Stolz.
Aye.
Mr. Bacher.
Aye.
Mr. Polakana.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
9 ayes.
All right, I will note that we have 2 items, number 7 under this item, so we'll go with, I will call 7A, the first one on page 3. We have a motion for a resolution for designation of millage rates following county-wide reassessment of real estate values.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this, or Dr. Steinberger, do you or your staff wish to make a comment?
This is the, something that we have to do for 2 reasons: set the new millage rate, but it's also important for the TIF plan as well. And the numbers have changed a lot, as you can see, from 46.75 mils to 16.1259. And we've been holding back for a little bit of time until we looked at some reassessment data. And the bad news is we have to set the rate, even though there could be some additional information regarding future tax assessment appeals. We're now at the point where this is the best information we've had. We've run it by PFN, so this is the number we're kept comfortable. Want to add anything, Mrs. Irwin, to that?
The revenue neutral millage is something that we had to actually submit to the state after we voted not to exceed the index. I had to submit the document to the state that showed the proposed millage, some assessment figures that were given to them, and we discussed with the solicitor also, so that we would we had to look at what the tax levy would be based on the old mills for the same properties at the new mills, the equivalent. So that's what this number came up with when we filled in the report that we had to submit to the state.
and had it reviewed with the solicitor.
Okay, I'd like to point out that this is a requirement of state law under the fact that the Lehigh County reassessed all the properties in the county. And as Mr. Stolz pointed out, it's revenue neutral right now for the millage rate. This change does not change anybody's tax bill. Your assessment will change your tax bill, but this change changes nobody's tax bill. This, until we adopt a new budget where we would possibly raise this millage, or if we have a zero tax increase, we won't change this millage. This motion changes nobody's tax bill. The only thing that changes their tax bill is the county's reassessment. So that's what this is. It's just simply following the requirements of law to change from one village to another because the county has reassessed all of the property in the county. So if there's any questions about that, we'll try to answer them. Mr. Bacher?
I'm just going to comment on that. My understanding is that they take the assessed value of all the properties last year, those properties that are still on the tax rolls this year, they take the total assessed value with the new assessment, and the requirement in the law is that you select a millage that gives you the same revenue. So to reinforce Mr. Ballard's comments, it's an apples-to-apples comparison to not change the taxes. Any raising or lowering the tax rates is relative to the 6.1259 number.
Mr. Earnshaw?
And just to further clarify, the reason the millage rate has gone down so much is the county decided to assess properties at their full assessed value, or their full appraised value. Previously, they used about half of the appraised value, and you paid taxes based on half the value of your home. And then they reset all the values. So for those properties that have increased in value, which is probably every one of them since 1991, I think was the last reassessment, in the ensuing 22 years, I guess it is, the property values have all gone up, and therefore you have a larger tax base, so you have a smaller rate. And if your home increased in price faster than other homes in the district, you're going to end up having a higher tax bill, even though the rate is constant. And if your home did not appreciate in value as much as your neighbors, or if you built a new home, perhaps in 2005 or 2006 when property values were soaring and have since come down, your property bill is going to go down even though the rate hasn't changed. And that's simply a function of the way the county is doing things, not anything that we've chosen to do. Thank you.
Anything else? Ms. Birdsall, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Fuller. Aye. Mr. Pollock.
Aye.
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rhodes.
Aye.
Ms. Sanchez.
Aye.
Dr. Bacher.
Aye.
Mr. Stolz.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
Aye, voting.
Okay, we will have item 7B now on page 4, the Capital Reserve Fund transfer. Can I have a motion, please? Any questions, comments? Ms. Sanchez?
Yes, I just have a question. What's the advantage of moving funds to the capital reserve fund over paying the bill from the general fund or committing funds in the fund balance?
Well, number one is once we put the money into the capital reserve, it's there until we use it. If we kept the money in the general fund, that money can get commingled, and at the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, that money's no longer designated for anything. It just rolls over. So I think the primary reason we want to do this is dedicate money that will go into support of maintaining the physical well-being of our buildings, and so that's why we want to do that. We can't spend any money out of the capital reserve account for any expenditure other than some project that's available, and there's a limit.
18,000.
Yeah. So that's why we would recommend doing that, so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And think about it this way. The proceeds from the bonds were used for school construction for capital projects. So I think what we're trying to do is capture the spirit of why those funds were generated in the first place and return as much as we can to the school facilities program.
So once it's in there, is it committed to a specific project?
No.
Like last year, like we took that committed fund, it was construction refund, but it was committed to the pension.
One of the things that we have to do, and I think Mr. Glancy gave you a little overview last board meeting, we have to come to the board to ask permission to, in essence, withdraw that money from the capital reserve to spend on a particular project. So we have to come back to you for that.
And just in a dire situation, is it possible for the board to vote the monies out of capital reserve for
No.
anything but never? And I was referring back to an old sheet. I had a schedule, and I would love to have this updated if you could. It's the capital project schedule, and I noticed that the Lincoln roof is actually, initially it was listed for 14-15, so I mean it's kind of good that we can do it earlier, but I'd love to see, what the anticipated projects are as it stands now.
Right. Unfortunately, we've had some situations at Lincoln where we really need to address that roof. It's deteriorated sooner than we thought. And that's the way it is with these projects. Sometimes you get unexpected surprises, and I think the capital, by putting over $1 million in capital, that gives us a little more flexibility. I think we're about 1.9 now, Mr. Clancy. When I came to the district, 2007, we were about 4.8. So we really haven't made that much of a donation, and I think this is the time to do it.
Dr. Bacher?
Just clarification, the capital reserve, as far as transferring money out, that's a specific reserve account that has special requirements on it, and it's because some of the money in there could be from debt, could be from other things that are not allowed to be used for general funds, and that's why it's treated separately.
No,
Other reserve funds, though, you could make a decision to move money out of a reserve fund.
Capital reserve is specifically designed in law that it can't be undone once you put the money in.
That's the point I was making, that it has it's a special reserve fund. There are other reserve funds that you can put money in thinking you're going to use it for a purpose now, and 5 years later you could decide to use that money for something. Capital reserve is a special reserve fund. That means once it goes in there, you commingle the funds and you can't take anything out other than use it for a capital project.
But Dan, I think I heard you ask, maybe I'm wrong. We can use any dollars out of the operating budget. Let's just say we've had unanticipated good run like on earned income tax or even some unanticipated real estate revenue gains. And this is what the district did before I got here. They looked at your financial situation and said, hey, we're kind of healthy. So it wasn't uncommon for the board before I got here to make a motion to take money out of the general fund and put it in capital reserve. So it could come from really general operating.
Yeah, but what I was saying, it's then commingled though with money that came from others,
Doesn't matter.
and that's why you can't take it out.
Well, it's not because it's commingled, it's because specifically it's in the capital reserve fund.
Once it goes in there, it's
It
capital.
doesn't matter where you got it for the capital reserve fund, if you put it in
I
there.
understand. I was just saying, I think the background behind that is because it's now commingled, and rather than having to try to trace everything, once it's commingled, you can't take it out. Other reserve funds, and I think Ms. Sanchez were referring to other reserve funds, don't have that requirement on them.
Mr. Stolz?
I've fought against putting money in the capital reserve fund before because I would like to have more flexibility with what we've done with funds. However, given the amount of projects that we have coming up, I remember it was something around $5 million in the current levels of the capital reserve. I'll support this.
Stolz, so comments? I do like to make my one-time funds speech at least once a year before budgets. If we get one-time funds such as from bond refinancing, they should be used for one-time projects. And by definition, that is the definition of capital reserve. You build something, it's a one-time build, it's a one-time use. And putting it into capital reserve is a good place for one-time funds from bond refinancing. Ms. Natchez, second time?
So I have been perplexed since last year when we got the 1.25 million from the Plan Con and we used it for committed funds to the pension. The pension's an ongoing cost, so I'm just always perplexed as to why we did that when it was construction money and why we didn't do it for a one-time project.
Well, there was a decision by the administration to apply for that because, as I understand it, we have a unique situation with the pension. Normally, you can predict fairly steadily growing pension things by your percentage of your salary. In this particular case, we're being hit with a requirement to make up for funds that weren't paid earlier and for some decisions to raise pensions and do some other things for the legislature, so that we have a unique situation with the pensions where they'll be rising from 4%, 4.5% this year, I think it is, something like that, to 30% within the next 10 years. And that kind of steep rise is something that is also a potential use for one-time funds, because you've got to try to smooth that out where the taxpayers get slapped immediately with every bit of every raise. So if you attempt to build yourself up some funds, and a lot of districts have been doing this, putting money into pension reserve funds to try to even that out a little bit, so that maybe you only have to go to 6% instead of 7% to catch up on that curve. So there are some other things besides constructions that are sort of one-time effects, like one-time ramps that you have to deal with. And so it's a question of whether you deal with that with tax increases immediately or take some one-time funds and stick it into a fund to try to ameliorate that. So it's a decision.
A softening of a steep curve.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Ms. Purcell, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rudd.
Aye.
Ms. Natchez.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller. Aye. Mr. Colantano.
Aye.
Mr. Bacher.
Aye.
Mr. Stolz.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Okay, now we're on to, is there any objection to putting numbers 8 and 9 together?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Not appearing, Ms. Purcell, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Earnshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Rudd.
Aye.
Ms. Natchez.
Aye.
Ms. Fuller. Aye. Mr. Colantano.
Aye.
Mr. Bacher.
Aye.
Mr. Stolz.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde. Aye. Mr. Ballard.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Motion, number 10 has been withdrawn by the submitter. Is there anything new to come before the board this evening? Dr. Bacher?
I just wanted to comment, Dr. Seidenberger sort of mentioned it, I heard that we do have the TIP plan up on the website. I did hear today that there might be a revision of it. The exhibits were left out of the PDF that was sent out. So I believe there's going to be a new revision coming out tomorrow morning that will be requested to put up on the website by noon tomorrow. I also just wanted to reiterate the chances of the public to hear about and comment on the plan. There was a slight revision I learned from reading Randy Kraft's article on the LCIDA meeting. The county commissioners are having the presentation of the plan on the 24th and not having the first reading of the plan until May 8th. Second reading will be on May 22nd. School board, we're planning to have it on the agenda May 13th. And Lower Macungie Township has to have a public hearing after both the county and the district have voted on the plan. Just want to mention the timeline and also reiterate Dr. Seidenberger's comments that if any board members have questions, or really if any public has questions, please email them or make a comment and we'll try to get those questions answered, because I think it's, as Dr. Seidenberger has alluded to, and as you can see in the document, there's a potential significant benefit financially to the school district, from this plan, and so I think it's important that everyone gets answers to questions and understands the plan.
Okay, and I think it's important that everybody in the public take a look at this plan who's interested in the TIF and understanding its finances. And I do want to try to give one piece of information that tries to explain something. Right now, the district receives approximately $7,000 in taxes from this property. Because the property was reassessed, next year we're going to get $57,000 from that property. But that has nothing per se to do with the TIF. That has simply to do with the County of Lehigh's reassessment. As I said, some people will find their assessment increased even though none of the yet tax rates of the East Penn School District have changed. But that's a number that comes out and people will say, well, wait a minute, I thought you said it was 7,000. It was 7,000 this year, it's going to be 57,000 next year, but that's due simply to a reevaluation, reassessment of that property instead of as raw land, where it sits. So, understand that.
I would just want to remind the board and the public that when you read the TIF plan, it lays out very clearly what each governmental entity will receive over the life of the TIF. Each year, there's a number. In addition, there's an estimate also for earned income tax receipts during that period as well. So my suggestion is really look at those numbers. That's the story. But again, anything you want to know about a TIF, there's a great narrative in there. Mr. Bacher and I had nothing to do with writing that narrative, but I'm sure he will agree with me that we learned a lot in this process. I knew virtually nothing about a TIF, and now I think I know something after we spent countless hours trying to learn about the nuances of the TIF.
And please understand that this TIF is a Pennsylvania TIF. It's not somebody else's TIF. You have to read all of the narrative which goes into the Pennsylvania law and which applies and what doesn't apply to this kind of TIF. So check the document tomorrow when they've had a chance to update it with the latest figures. You'll find all the stuff informative today, but tomorrow will be the updated document. Anyone else? Mr. Stolz?
Different topic, right?
Yeah, you got something new? Go ahead.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank my fellow board members. At the last meeting, you were asked to draft a resolution of censure against me for comments that I had made on social media. I know there may be one or two of you that don't much care for me personally, and I frequently disagree with most of you politically. I've not always been a perfect board member, but I have always strove to be an honest one. I thank you for giving me the freedom to continue being honest about what I believe, even when you disagree. It speaks highly of your character and of your respect for the First Amendment. In return, I owe it to you, my colleagues, and to the public to be more circumspect in the way I express my beliefs in the public domain. Being honest does not mean I should fail to think before I type. Once again, my thanks to all.
Anything else new to come before the board this evening? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this.
Now we need to announce.
Oh, yes, that's true. We had an executive session prior to this meeting, and we will have an executive session after the board meeting to discuss personnel.
In the previous meeting, we also discussed confidential real estate.
Confidential real estate, too. Okay. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.